Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And it's Ben.
on Spoiled Rotten.
Oh, that shelf.
Boom. I guess I always say welcome back, but this could be someone's first episode. But it feels like, just welcome back, You've always been here.
Yeah.
I'm
tempted to not say welcome in because I listen to a lot of fantasy football stuff and they all say welcome in. And we're distinctly not fantasy football.
No.
But we are all about ranking today.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We're going to be ranking everything that came out in Phase 4 of the MCU. I don't know if the Christmas special counts as Phase 4. It seems like it doesn't really have a home, but we haven't seen it yet, so it's
yeah, and I'm glad we're bringing this up because everyone MCU, like Kevin Feige has said, like this Black Panther Wakanda Forever is the end of Phase 4. So I don't know if it is included in there or if it's kind of like a Spider-Man situation where it's like, oh, it's bookended in. It's kind of weird into the saga thing, I mean, but it's still officially part of the phase. But I don't know, based on what they announced in those lineups, it wasn't really considered a part of Phase 4, right?
I don't know.
At Comic-Con?
It is a moot point, as I said, since it's not out yet. And we're recording this a week after seeing... I mean, it isn't, for me, even a week after seeing Black Panther 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a week to the day for you.
This is a week to the day for me, and I have plans to see it again this weekend. So I'm very excited for that. It's going to be a good weekend.
So yeah, I guess we'll just go in release order, kind of talk about each thing. There's 2 on the list that we didn't actually record an episode for, so it'll be new information to you how we felt about those things, and then we will rank them from least favorite to favorite at the end of all of this. So you're in for a treat, everybody.
That's right.
Here we go. WandaVision, which I will say our Spoiled Rotten episode on that is episode 127, if you want to listen to what we thought of WandaVision as a whole. First thing that came out, I know people are like, oh, it wasn't supposed to be, but here we are. It is the first thing that we got on Disney Plus, and people were really fiending for some MCU stuff, so I feel like it was a big thing. It got a lot of action in terms of impression share of the public. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know how to just public discourse. I think it got a lot of that.
It was the thing that people were talking about at the time, right? It's like the Game of Thrones finale. It's just like a significant portion of people, even not like Marvel people, were watching this, and it's because of obviously the timing of the pandemic, and then this was the first Disney Plus show launch, right? So
it wasn't the first Disney Plus show, but it was the first Marvel Disney Plus show.
It was the first Marvel Disney Plus show in the MCU. And people were kind of like wondering how is the 6-hour or 6 to 8 hour runtime going to fare out in terms of storytelling. This is the first crack at it, and like you said, a lot of eyes on it.
So I rewatched it before Doctor Strange 2 came out on Disney Plus, because Pauline wanted to watch Doctor Strange 2, so we watched WandaVision first. And I feel like it really still held up. Like, I haven't really changed my opinion on it. I thought it really still worked for me.
Yeah.
What about you?
I agree. It still worked for me. Taking away the fan reactions and the expectations of the week-to-week thing, which we do go into in that podcast episode, 127, you said, right? That's our biggest critique, and I think that's largely, you'll find that to be a common theme amongst the shows, is like, did they have enough episodes? Did they have too many? Was it one short? And like all these kind of things, it's a common reoccurring thing. Versus the movies, we never really have that discussion whatsoever. in the MCU at least. We definitely have had movies where we've reviewed where it's like, yeah, that needed to be longer. But definitely not in the MCU. We're like, yeah, the runtimes are what they are. But in this situation,
No,
yeah,
I disagree, but we'll get to it.
you oh right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least that's my case.
Yeah.
Speaking for myself. But WandaVision, yeah, great series. I don't think I've changed much more except for probably liking it more, but that's because like second walkthroughs, I'm always looking for more Easter eggs and
Yeah. It's
tiny little
also,
references.
I'm pretty sure the Disney Plus show I've watched the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was watching it like twice when it came out, and then
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure I watched it again before we recorded our episode, and then I've watched it for the just rewatch with Pauline.
So like at least 3 times, 3 run-throughs. So
3 or 4.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So that there's that. That
Mhm.
should play into how people feel about where I rank it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't really change my opinion on it. So that
Yeah.
there's
I
that.
can I can definitely tell you I probably felt better about it
Yeah.
this time because I'm like, oh, I don't have the bamboozled feeling. Like we know what the
Yeah.
delivery system's all about, and we're not getting the whole like, oh, is and it's not even the show itself doing this, and this is why
Well,
I
this show
mentioned
did
the fan
mention
base reaction. But
no,
the idea of like,
this show begged people to be like, oh, we're gonna get this, we're gonna get that. Like,
yeah, but they begged them to use their imaginations. That's what I'll say. And
no,
we
they
ran
kept
wild with
saying
a few things.
specifically things like, oh yeah, I can't, like I get to work with this actor, I can't, oh, this is gonna happen. Like this, I think the good thing about the Disney
Yeah.
Plus shows, if they didn't get better, they at least got better at promoting them.
Fair enough.
I
But
think
that's why I keep bringing up it was the first Disney Plus show because I don't think you're right. The promotion kind of stuff doesn't happen like that anymore.
yeah, I
We don't
think
get the Paul
they got their
Bettany
one
run
thing
around.
off, and that was that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So that's episodes 129 through 134 of our show if you want to listen to that. We covered it week to week, as you can tell from that number range instead of what we did for WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
I I haven't rewatched it since we talked about it. I've just kind of seen bits and pieces and talked about it on other podcasts, and I think I I remember it fondly, so I'll just put it that way. But you can hear through those episodes what I feel like on like a detailed level, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that was something that they took on that was a great endeavor.
Yeah. Um, I have rewatched it since we reviewed it, and it probably didn't land as well for me the second time watched through.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's the Sharon Carter stuff that really bothers me because it just comes out of nowhere. Being the deal broker, right, or the power
Power
broker.
Broker. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, the first episode she's in is called The Power Broker. It
yeah.
doesn't really come out of nowhere. It just
It's
didn't feel properly explored for sure. I would
yeah,
agree with that.
yeah.
Um,
But
I
in that
acknowledge
episode,
that.
even entitled Power Broker, it's just like, okay, yeah, she's introduced, but I mean, it's would you say that it's meant to be like, yeah, she's a power broker, and then the rest of the
I think,
series
yeah,
is not
retroactively, you're
referenced?
supposed to be like, yeah, I guess she showed up in the episode called Power Broker as the
Mm,
Power Broker.
I guess
I
so.
think I can acknowledge that that doesn't work, but I guess we'll just see how I feel about Disney Plus shows in general based on acknowledging that that big thing didn't work for me.
Sure.
Um, I don't think any show came out unscathed in terms of stuff that didn't work.
That is true. That is true.
Um,
Next up on the
Next
docket, we do have
is
Loki.
Loki. So that's episodes 140 to 144. Then we skipped one, and then 146 is our coverage of Loki. Really started strong. I also have not changed my opinion on this one.
Yeah.
I think you know, there's there's a lot of good in it. I think people like Loki, so it's probably at everyone's top. And
Mhm.
then it gave us He Who Remains at the end, which is a great way to end in terms of a high of introducing a new character.
Mhm.
and let's not like what is her? Wow, I've forgotten the
Sylvie,
name of female Sophie.
Sylvie,
Sylvie. Sylvie is a great character as well.
yeah,
I mean, so is the like TVA agent.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a lot of great
Renslayer, and
female characters.
yeah,
Yeah, there's just amazing female characters. I think, um, yeah, if you listen to those episodes, you'll hear the arc of me being like, yeah, this is great. This is doing exactly what
and
Falcon and Winter Soldier was doing, and then it kind of
then
comes to a point where they're like, nah, never mind.
the big old bamboozle at the end.
Yeah, so I haven't really changed my opinion on that, but
It's
it's still
yeah,
worth a watch.
it is.
It's not,
Yeah.
as I said, none of these shows are without their issues. I just think that thematically it seems to be in conflict with itself
Hmm.
versus the first two shows we just talked about didn't have that feeling for me. While they might have had elements that I would have liked better explained or just not in it, they still didn't thematically kind of like eat their own tail.
Yeah, because I completely agree. Loki does the bamboozled thing in a very, very interesting way because it's like, but wait, we're gonna give you He Who Remains and everything like that, and we're gonna give you Jonathan Majors. We're gonna give you this small little glimpse of like what we're setting up for the rest of the phase and all that. But then you're like, wait, in terms of storytelling, though, this is very unsatisfying, and I feel that more watching it
Well,
again.
yeah, I think the idea that you have the villain, he who remains, point out how pointless Loki was in the Loki show.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be like Thor Ragnarok or Indiana Jones, where no one point like shines a light on it,
Hmm.
and you're like, oh, I guess all of this would have happened no matter what.
Hmm.
That's one thing. It at least is like, oh, I guess they didn't think about that. But this one is like, well, they thought about it. They put it on display, and then left him in a state that is pretty much the same as when we met him, instead of having him actually go through a journey and become something else.
Yeah, he just
And they isolated him. Like, so it's
yeah.
like he can't even have other people around him. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I understand there's a second season, but as a story, it's like, oh, so now he doesn't even have people around him who saw the change and can speak to it. It's just he feels rejected. He knows he would be rejected because a variant of himself rejected him,
Hmm.
and no one else is around to kind of fortify his thing. I was just like, oh, no, not really for me. I agree
Yeah.
that he is a interesting character. I agree
Hmm.
that He Who Remains is a great like that episode. I don't even remember what that last episode was called, but like he it's great. But if you put all those episodes together, it's kind of like, oh, well,
Yeah.
seems like this shouldn't have been a show about him, and it was really a show about Sylvie.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that is the variant thing, and I like that, but it's just I thought you're right. I thought the whole thing was about self-love and acceptance and like all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and
The
they
creative
could
meta
get there
and
by the end of the series. It's just as it's season one, I'm like, oh, like
yeah.
I would rather him not have it confirmed to him all of the negative thoughts he had about himself.
Yes.
You
Because
can
that
take him away
those
from everyone who knows that he's changed, but he should still feel like he's changed. But at this point, they could just ignore it. But to me, I would have like to me, it may only make sense that he'd be like, yeah, I was right. No one trusts me, and I can't be trusted, and that's
yeah.
that.
And then where we go from here? Like he's not gonna be like we've seen before. He's not gonna be a headliner main villain. He's controlled. He's like he's not really at that level. So what is he
No,
gonna do? And when he does rule, he's hedonistic. So it's just like okay, you've kind of gotten the character to really go nowhere. Maybe
yeah,
hide out with the other Lokis, and who knows where that goes. But there was a lot of setup in Loki and a lot of nothing. A lot of
uh,
nothing.
agreed. Next, Black
Then
Widow.
the first feature film release in
So
Phase
this is an
4.
episode we did with Michelle Gardner.
Mhm.
It's episode 145 of our show. So you can listen to that for details and some great insights from Michelle that I didn't think of. Um I also haven't changed my opinion on this. I think it's probably not as I guess sorry. What I should say is what I thought was strong, I still think is strong. Um but maybe having seen how everything shook out, it's not like top of the list for me. It's just kind of like, yeah, I still think that thematically, and I'll always go back to that. It I liked where it was going in terms of having that idea of that like pain makes you stronger, and how that played into who the villain was,
Mm-hmm.
not Taskmaster, and specifically how I mean it introduced one of my favorite MCU characters in Yelena Belova. So like
Mm-hmm.
I I would never be mad at that, and I truly enjoyed the family stuff. I thought like it was a movie where like almost immediately was like, oh, I'm on board if this is what we're doing. This is
Mm-hmm.
great.
Yeah, the family stuff really, really worked for me. The whole like, oh yeah, they were Russian spies living out
Hmm.
the cover and all that kind of like that really, really worked for
And
me,
like what that
especially
did to those
how
two girls,
and
like
especially Yelena, like
yeah.
the idea of like, don't no, that was real for me. Like it was a mission for you, but it was real for me.
Well, I mean,
Like
I don't think that it actually was just a mission for
uh,
Natasha.
right. And she's just playing it off
Yeah.
cool. But what I'm saying is like when she said that line, it's just like it
Hmm.
really hit home. I'm like, oh yeah, this is something like you're right. It introduces a great character. Um, but it doesn't
I
it
think they
wasn't
just did better in phase 4 than that, but I still feel like
yeah.
what worked for me, and I feel like
It's just
it
an awkward
unfairly
movie.
gets like shit on.
Yeah, it does fairly get shit on, and I think a lot of that has to do with its release point. I'm like, okay, if it did come out in phase 2 or 3, then it would have been a lot better received, I think, because you put it in such an awkward
Uh,
spot here. You can't set up Yelena. I get that, all those kind of things, but it's just like
to me, I
again,
wouldn't want that backwards
it's
step,
more
if I'm being
yeah,
honest.
but
I
like
just feel like
there's more story about a character that's dead, and I'm like, oh, that bites
I
for
mean
me.
that's not a problem for me. That's
Fair.
like you can still tell a good story if you know the character's dead.
I
That's
get it.
nothing.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get
I
it.
don't
This is not the Han Solo situation. I
no.
fully get that, but this is just a situation where I'm like, yikes, it didn't work for me that well.
I'm
But
assuming you mean on your like rewatch because you gave it a 9.
I did give it a 9 at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now like when I rank it through the list, turns out I'm a little bit more generous with my rankings than I thought. When I was because I was looking at some of my rankings and like what I put in here, I'm like, oh, this list is not going to make a lot of sense, except for the retrospective
I
part.
mean, to be fair, that's why we're like making a point of saying if we rewatched it or how we feel about it now. Like just because
Yep.
there's a recording of us saying Black Widow is a 9 doesn't mean that it's still a 9. It just
Yes.
means that that's how we felt then. And I was just making sure that you were being clear that what you meant was it doesn't work for you upon rewatch.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
It's the rewatch thing that didn't work well for me. Didn't set well on the rewatch, but that's fair enough. We'll go on
Yes. All right.
because next one after that is
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi.
So that's episode 156 of our
Mm-hmm.
podcast.
And a movie
Uh,
that actually sat a lot better for me on the rewatch than it did
I
for the first
figured
time
it
around.
would.
Yeah,
There was only up for it to go for you.
this is true. Like there was a lot I saw in that movie that I didn't like,
Mhm.
and the more I looked at it, I'm like, why am I not liking this right now? And then answering those questions made me feel like, oh, okay, this had the best potential to grow within what it was allowed to do.
Mhm.
It was frustrating it didn't do more, and at a point in time where it was like fighting against a lot of odds, pandemic wise,
Mhm.
rising Asian racism wise, and all that kind of stuff. But it's still, as a movie itself, fundamentally good watch through. I
I think
enjoyed
it's
it.
a very enjoyable film.
Yeah,
Um,
Simu does well. I always was like, Simu kicks it in this movie. It's great, but I feel and oh god, the Wen Wu thing.
yeah, he's a
He is
great
easily
character.
one of the best characters, man. Like that's why
I
I like this
think
movie so
I
much
th-
more. Is
I
Wen
think the
Wu?
Aquafina character's name is Katie. Like I'm not an
Yes,
Aquafina
Katie.
fan, but I like
Mm-hmm.
Simu Liu and Aquafina's chemistry. I think it really works. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
the obvious Wenwu is great aspect
Yep.
of it. Uh Not a movie I mean I revisited after we reviewed it. but I haven't since last year. So my memory of it is that kind of like Winter Falcon and Winter Soldier. What I liked about it initially, when I think about it, still works for me. It doesn't feel like it's I overhyped it that sense. But yeah, it's an entertaining film, is what I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Next is What If, which is episode 158 of our show. To be honest, I don't really think about What If. It's I think obviously I love Star-Lord T'Challa.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great episode. I
Very.
kind of liked what they did with Killmonger stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. It's basically my opinion of What If. It was fun.
Yeah.
I didn't. It's not something I think about very often.
No, I can't say that I would, because it's just like, in terms of Disney Plus show, like in terms of that payoff, in terms of MCU proper and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, yeah, okay, there's references to it in other properties, but I mean, like, it's not a continuation of that same character. So it's kind of like, that's neat. We see the live action iteration of what they drew, but I mean, overall, I don't think it has an overall bigger bearing to it. It's fun, and I want to see more of it. But you're right, I don't think too much of it.
No, I
There's
don't
not
think
much to
about
say
it.
about
It's
What
fun
If.
though.
It's
But
very fun.
I do remember really not liking that Doctor Strange episode, which obviously everyone
Yeah.
loved.
Yeah, that was
Everyone loved that shit. But just I
sucked watching him do the same thing over and over and over again and not succeed and have to watch
what?
her die all that
Yeah,
much.
I really wasn't into that
Yeah.
because I didn't ever really feel like whatever we talked about this in other Doctor Strange episodes, but I was never
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, he really loves her. I think like it was just the Christine Palmer character.
Yeah.
Like,
I
yeah,
think
they
he
had
really
their thing
needs
and they
her.
realized they didn't work together.
Yeah, I think he really needs her, or he thought he did. But like you said,
But
in
yeah,
the second, in the Multiverse of Madness, is like, yeah, this is better for the character. Like, let move on from
well, I
her.
think that is one strong point for What If is
Mhm.
that you at least can be like, well, I just watched What If where they tried to drill it into my head that he loves her. So a lot of this stuff in Multiverse of Madness makes sense because I
Yeah.
guess we're supposed to believe he loves her.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's because he plays the character off as someone that he loves himself so much more than anything else. Which is true. I mean, like, even in She-Hulk, they're like, why are all superhero narcissists and like
yeah.
billionaire narcissists and whatever? I'm like,
Well,
yeah, he
I
falls in that
believe that
category.
the events that happen in Infinity War Endgame and
Mhm.
No Way Home fundamentally changed him. I don't think
Yes.
he loves himself more than anything else anymore. Otherwise, Infinity War feels like it would be different if he still loved himself more than anything else.
Right.
He would
I,
have found a
I
way where he doesn't have to go away.
yeah, yeah. No, but what I meant is, when you bring up the fact that, like, yeah, it cements the fact that maybe he really did care about her. I'm like, yeah, because you don't get that in the first movie. Because in the first movie, he's just being that
I'm not even
narcissist.
saying I feel like they tried and it didn't work. I feel
Mm,
like they successfully told me in that first movie this was a relationship where they realized they're better like peers than they are
yes.
lovers. And that's an interesting thing to put in a movie where usually you'd be like, well, no, there has to be someone that he falls in love with at the end.
Mhm.
Like I like that it was like she's just another person he treats poorly and that there's clearly a mutual respect there, but it doesn't have to be a romantic thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, like I just didn't think that's where they were going with that, and then they did. And all I'm saying is a strong point for that episode is at least it was top of mind for me when we went into Multiverse of Madness with
Yeah.
that love stuff. Um, so yeah, that's What If. Kind of just fun. Now Eternals. This is episode 162 of our show. If you want to hear, I don't care for this movie. I don't care about
It's
it.
not
I
a
don't
good
care for it.
movie.
And this is definitely one where I feel like this is a movie where they didn't use their time effectively.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's the second longest now that sorry, there's
Third.
Endgame,
Third longest
then
now.
yeah, so yeah, it's third
Wakanda
longest now
Forever.
to Wakanda Forever, and I still felt like, well, I feel like more needed to happen. Like
Yeah.
I mean, again, I haven't rewatched it. I saw it the once. I don't much care for it.
Mhm.
Um,
it's just
I
the
think I like it
cinematic.
less than when we talked about it.
Yeah,
But I
it's
feel like even during our conversation the first time, I started liking it less as we talked about it.
mhm. I did do a rewatch of Eternals for some reason. I just kind of rewatch a lot of
That's
things.
good of you.
Yeah, and it doesn't. It's not fun to
No,
rewatch that
I felt
movie.
like I got everything I was gonna get out of it the first time,
Yeah,
but I think it's good that you rewatched it because at least you'll have a more updated opinion of it
hmm
than me. But yeah, just the more other stuff came out, the less I thought about it. And I feel like the episode we recorded right after that, I already didn't want to think about it anymore. So
yeah. And to be clear, when I say I rewatched it, it was probably 9 months ago when I had nothing better to do.
okay.
So it's not
I mean,
recent. I
I'm
definitely
glad
did
other
not
people like it.
watch Fall of Phase 4 before
Yeah, yeah.
this episode. That
No,
would be a lot of dedication.
no, that'd be too much.
For sure. But I mean, I what I mean is I have rewatched it. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a very pretty movie. This is a lot of cinematography,
Hmm.
but that's not what we need right now. We need more storytelling.
Kingo's sidekick guy was great. I have to give them that. That I
I
thought,
love Kingo Sidekick guy. I forget what
yeah,
his name
like
is.
that. I was like in the trailers, like I'm gonna hate this guy, and the fact that I was like, this guy's great,
Yeah,
like almost immediately. I
yeah.
was, that's a plus for the movie. Was not a fan of what they did with Gilgamesh. That's his name, right? The guy from Train to Busan.
It's yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't like that.
Did not. I was not a fan of that.
Yeah, I really had a lot of feelings, like a lot of negative feelings rewatching that and how he
Yeah,
just oh yeah, it's not
I
great.
I'm pretty
Don't
sure it's
don't
this
love it.
movie where like they're like, here's the plan. And I was like, I still don't understand what your fucking plan is. Like, I don't like it's fine. I don't care. If you can explain to the audience if you know it. It's I don't want to like know what it is. I'm just glad I finished the movie and it's done. I never want
Oh,
to think of
it's I mean it goes no more complicated than by our powers combined, this is Captain Planet and we
excellent.
can that's all I'm gonna
Perfect.
say is not that another person comes out, but it's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna tether all our energies together to overcome this one thing, even though the entire team isn't assembled. You would think that the final boss would require the full force of the team, but no, you've got legit like a
Oh
few
yeah, you just
characters that are
reminded
like
me that they're
dipped
like
out at
Kingo's
the
just
end.
gonna leave now.
Yeah, Kingo just goes, hey, yeah, I'm not gonna fight with my family, but I'm on the side of the Celestials, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
dip out. I'm like,
yeah.
that
They gave
you
him a
have
reason. Don't get me wrong. I understand, but I'm like, he
yeah,
still needed to come back. And anyway, we talked about it on the episode, but I
yeah,
forgot about that whole part where they're like, it's not
you
even
were
all of them at once at the end.
yeah, and it's that, and then the idea of like, oh, okay, it's not all at once fighting together because the majority of the time they're fighting against Icarus.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
it's
mean, sorry, yeah, I do remember. I remember he's the villain. It's just,
yeah,
it's not like they still had everybody who was still good on their side because I know Sprite
correct.
also temporarily becomes a villain,
Oh
which
yeah.
in the comic run I read, the Neil Gaiman run, Sprite just is the bad guy. So that part I was waiting for.
Mhm.
The Icarus thing actually got me by surprise. So if I'm giving it pluses, I didn't see the Icarus thing coming. And Kingo Psychic, who I wish I remember the name of, is great.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I also thought that the Makari stuff was wild, that they just sidelined her for like most of the movie.
Oh
And
yeah.
then they were like, she's bored. I'm like, why is she hiding then? Like, go out and do something.
Yeah. I mean, this is all that and the Black Knight thing, the Dane Whitman thing, where you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess they're together, and I guess that's a sufficient way to write out his character if he doesn't have powers right now.
Yeah,
That makes
sure.
sense.
I mean, I didn't. Whatever. Yeah.
I mean, like I get it. It's
Blade is
like,
in it.
yeah, she
That's
was dating
good.
someone.
It might be the
Yeah,
only
his
time we
voice
get
is in it.
Mahershala Ali as Blade. So
Yeah,
that's
because there's
there's
a
that.
lot of
Protect this
nothing
movie.
happening there right
Yeah,
now.
protect that movie at all costs, I guess, because it might be the
Oh
only time we
yeah.
get Mahershala Ali as Blade.
Yep.
Uh, all right, next Hawkeye, which is episodes 165 to 168, and then episode 170.
I cannot believe we did every episode for
I
such
do
a
not like this
series
show
that I
either.
despise so much.
I mean, to be clear, I don't despise it. I still like Kate Bishop, and I love that Yelena came back for this.
Mm,
So it has that going for
the
it.
Yelena stuff is good. That is very, very good. But the rest of
I
this
did not
series is a
rewatch this
no
show.
go. No, I did
I
not either.
didn't
I
really know
just
what it was about. And
yeah.
to be clear, if this is your first time listening to this, that is my in for a movie. Like, what are they trying to say? And this doesn't mean that I feel like a movie can only be made if there's some kind of like thing they're trying to tell me. If you just want to like in Fast and Furious, I don't really care what they're trying to tell me. I just want to watch them have a good time. Like I will enjoy those movies. That's and I do still like them. Like it's not like I'm like, oh, they fell off or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I still enjoy them for what I enjoy them for. I'm talking, but we also don't really cover those in depth on this show. Like I'm talking about if I'm covering a show, if we are going to like be dismantling it, it helps if I feel like there's some kind of central truth they're getting at.
Yeah, some motif,
or they're asking
some
a
theme.
question. Like they're asking an interesting question and they're exploring it. But I think
none of
this
that was
show
here
just
for
kind of was like, I don't know, we got fucking Kingpin coming, so stay tuned. I think I should say I did like
Echo.
her name's Alaqua Cox. What's the character name though?
I'm just gonna reference her as Echo because
Echo.
that's
that's what I'm talking about. Echo's great. I'm glad that she's in the MCU now.
Yep.
Unfortunate that this is the show she's in, but she's here now. That's great. As I said, I like Kate Bishop, so I'm glad she's been introduced.
I had a lot of problems with this show. I mean, no surprise where it ends up on my list, but
yeah, I'm not a Hawkeye fan though. So
yeah,
this
it's
show
a whole lot of
really
poopy
make
for me.
like him more.
And it made me like, oh, okay, all the gripes about the father, like just why would they do that? Like in the first episode, why would they kill him off screen and set that they knew we'd be asking questions? Show us a body.
I mean, that works for the comic because you're like, oh, it's the father comes back, and I get them subverting expectations with that. But I do think that the show mostly works if you know the Matt Fraction run that they are, riffing off of.
Yeah, but I mean, it just goes to show this. It's a character that I don't care too much about. It just doesn't work for me. He's got his moments.
Well, this is the thing. Like, not to tip my hand, but like, I didn't care about Wanda or Vision either, but their show made me care.
Yeah, it's true. Like
Hawkeye was just like, I don't really need this. I loved reading the comic. Don't get me wrong. But then when I was like, oh, they're just doing the comic in the show, but they can't even really do the comic. I was like, this isn't for me.
Yeah, because like for WandaVision, at least you got like, oh, this is an action rom-com. Okay, that's kind of interesting.
I think it's a bit more than that, but yeah.
Well, okay, yes, it's a lot more than that, but the way it was
more dramatic than that.
Yes, of course, but the way it was originally sold versus the Hawkeye thing, I was like, oh, this is Christmas. Christmas is a character in this. Great.
Next is No Way Home, which also has Christmas as a character. Yeah, episode 169 of our show.
You're right.
Well, they intersect, even though you don't see the two characters, but Spider-Man does swing by the tree that Hawkeye and Kate Bishop spend some time in, or something. I don't remember that show.
Yeah, we're told roughly it's the same time frame.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Great. No more talking about Hawkeye.
Yeah.
No Way Home. No Way Home. As I said, episode 169. You can hear our thoughts on that. I am a big Spider-Man fan, and I thought that movie did a great job of justifying all the things that people didn't like about MCU Spider-Man and being like, all right, so we just finished this first like round of Spider-Man stories, and now we're getting into the stuff that everyone else wanted to see from the beginning because we're taking our time.
Yep.
And I really, really enjoyed it. And maybe I've tipped the scales because I saw it in theaters again with all the extra stuff added in, which really worked for me. There was like maybe one or two scenes where you're like, I can see why this got cut, but for the most part, I enjoy it. Not because it doesn't work, but it's because you're like, I mean, this is just them having fun, which is nice to see in this. But like, if you were putting your best foot forward first, yes, I can see you cutting some of the scenes that I'm thinking about. But overall, I really enjoyed seeing it again in theaters very recently, this summer, and with all the stuff put back in, including Tom Holland's brother scene, which still wasn't. I mean, people were really mad they took it out, but I'm like, it's fine. It actually does help the character stuff, but I was just like, the brother doesn't get to do much. But yeah, I think is great. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I've always got a huge bias towards Spider-Man. I don't love where the movie ends. Got to be honest with you. I like the movie. It's fun, does its thing. Don't love where it ends.
I think for me, it's different than the Tobey Maguire stuff
Mm-hmm.
because I genuinely believe he's a stupid kid.
Yep.
Like, yes, he's book smart, but he is a stupid kid. So I can see him making that dumb decision to not just follow through on what he promised to do
Yeah.
versus the gaslighting that Tobey Maguire like holds on to for most of his movies.
It's true. He does it so actively and it's so
Yeah,
bad.
like
Versus like
to
he
your
does it
point,
once on a massive scale. But
yeah,
like Tobey
to your
Maguire's
point,
gaslighting
yeah,
is so
that
bad.
sucks that he does that. But I also feel like even if it's not Tom Holland, they're continuing the story of that Spider-Man, so that's not a final thing. Like
Yeah.
everything in the MCU, it's like that's a mistake he's going to have to reckon with. He's
Yeah.
going to actually pay for that mistake of
Yeah, of
not
course.
following through on what he promised his loved ones.
And it's brutal because like like he really does lose everything at that point in time. But the
Yeah.
aside from the gaslighting thing, the thing that really bothers me the most about it is like, okay, we now have a Spider-Man that has to do the poor loner thing, and we have to explore that. And that's not fun to me because the reason why I liked this Spider-Man was because he got introduced with friends involved and you got to see him interact with everyone else. And because he is a kid, everyone treats him like that. And it's really funny to watch.
I mean, he
So a
still
lot
has
of that's going to be
superhero
gone.
friends. They just don't know who Peter Parker is. They know who
I
Spider-Man
get
is
it.
though.
I get it, which could be funny. You get those like those little snippets in the comic where he's like, "Oh yeah, they're hanging out at the Avengers Tower and he's eating pizza with his mask on. Yay!" Like that's fun. But like, who cares? Like, I liked him interacting with friends, having bigger adventures, yet still staying street level. I mean, he's gonna be doing that.
I mean, he didn't stay
Rumor,
street level. That was the point.
yeah, he didn't stay street level, but I mean, on his own stuff, he's going back to street level. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Is like, oh, he's not going to be doing that stuff anymore because he doesn't have the tech, he doesn't have the resources, he doesn't have.
Yeah.
He's got nothing. He's got no social security card. He doesn't even have a high school diploma, and that sucks to watch.
Yeah,
Don't like it.
I guess I'm just interested to see how they write themselves out of that because I was like I guess it was
Yeah.
very clear how they were going to write themselves out of him being revealed by J. Jonah Jameson at the end of Far From Home, but at
Mhm.
least with that I was like, holy shit, what are they going to do next? And I feel like this movie did that again. I think we also acknowledge like you could also just be like this is the end of it, and
Mhm.
I would also be fine with that. But I feel like they've made three great Spider-Man movies, and
Yes.
I'm not worried about them doing like another three. I
Mhm.
feel like they actually take their time with it and get it right.
Yeah, I would agree.
Um, Moon Knight. So this is episodes 183 to 188. I gotta say, it's, I think I like it less than when we first talked about it.
Yeah, it was. Why is that?
I haven't rewatched it. It's just the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, I didn't really like the way the stories were told in the comics, and they eventually got there with the
Mhm.
show. That aside, like my personal taste aside, I think they really rushed things by doing what is it like the fifth episode is where you like meet not meet, but they really dive into like what created what's the guy's name? Alan? No. Yeah, I don't remember their names even. But
Mark
there's Mark
Spector
Spector who
and
but
Jake
basically the way the
Lawley.
system was formed. You get to see how the
Right.
system was formed.
Mhm.
And I think that the show should have been all of that instead of like an episode because we already called it. Like once we got to episode 5, we're like, this is great stuff, but we know it's just going to be a punching fest next episode, and then it was just a punching
Yep.
fest next episode.
Mhm.
So I think there was a lot of like it felt like Loki to me, but at least Loki felt more consistently
Mhm.
paced. But it felt like Loki to me of like, wow, there's a lot of build up, and then they're like, yeah, whatever, it's a Marvel thing. It feels like to me, but like
Mhm.
they were kind of like, whatever, this is just a Marvel thing at the end, instead of going as deep as they could have gone
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
Moon Knight. Um, So yeah, that's how I feel. And
Yep.
also reading like that Oscar Isaac would go in and out of characters and scenes, but that wasn't what was written or what the directors were thinking. And I'm like, seems like I'm happy for him that he got to flex that muscle, but I think it causes more confusion and also kind of just like makes the production look weird
Yeah,
when
it's
you've got like stories like that.
I agree. It's really hard to edit around because you're like the editor is going to be like, wait, is this what the director wanted? Like it's a big process at that point, right? And I don't think I changed my opinion of it because I do like the exploration of the afterlife and the stuff with the hippo and all that kind of stuff. Like I forget what that god's name is, but that was a really, really strong episode for me. And like you said, that episode beforehand, and yeah, they're just beating each other up. And I'm like, that's less fun compared to what they were actually doing with the whole thing. But and I don't know, the giant final episode where you have the giant Khonshu and the giant alligator like beating each other up, it didn't work for me. That was like one of the things that didn't work for me in Shang-Chi too, is the kaiju fight at the end. It just got too much. Same
But
thing with
even
Moon Knight.
with Shang-Chi, you didn't feel like they weren't following through on what they had set up. It's just maybe
No,
not
you're
visually
right.
what you want to see, but that feels more cohesive than
It
this.
yes, you're absolutely right about
yeah.
that. It is much more cohesive in that storytelling because to even just go like, oh, we have this out of being like, oh, we're in Talo and Talo has magical creatures. Okay, cool. Why wouldn't a dragon exist here? That's a good writing story, a plot to get through there. Even if I didn't want to see the dragons like that or whatever, it's a lot better written than Moon Knight, where you're like, wait, is everyone seeing this? Because some people are seeing this. And then what's going on right now? It's
yeah,
a
all of that is
show
what I
that's
don't
trying
like.
to bamboozle me within a scene.
Yeah, all that
And
stuff is what I don't like.
it's well acted.
I don't
But
feel
yeah,
like happy when I don't know what's going on. Like,
yeah,
like
it's
having questions on what actually happened isn't interesting to me. And I'm not saying that's bad storytelling. It works for people, obviously. It doesn't
yes,
work for me, so that's why
yeah,
it's where it is for me.
yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It doesn't work for me.
It's more
Um,
anxiety producing than it is fun to watch.
yes. Doctor Strange in the
And the
multiverse.
multiverse of madness.
I like it more than we talked about. If I'm being honest, I like to be fair though. I did rewatch obviously with Pauline, but like I just feel like it was such an interesting story to tell. I'm not like I don't really care about the whole like, and then Charlize Theron shows up at the end. Did I say what episode that was? Sorry. That's episode 189 for Multiverse of Madness. But this was a movie where they asked a question I thought was very interesting. Was yes, it's are you happy? But it was more like what are you sacrificing and what's worth it to you, and where Wong and Doctor Strange end up at the end of the movie is I like that. I like where it lands. In addition to like so there's the question they're asking and what they're exploring, which I thought was really great, and the sacrifices. But I also did really enjoy, and it worked the next time I watched it, the Sam Raimi of it, like and how he got to like do his Sam Raimi stuff visually.
Yep.
I thought that really worked well because I was definitely vocally like, oh, this is stupid. Why would he didn't like all the oversight on
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3. Why would he come to MCU? There's just it's only gonna be oversight. And maybe he didn't have a good time. That's fair, but at least it looked like he got to have good moments
Yeah.
within making the film.
Yeah, I distinctly remember you not being on board with the Sam Raimi stuff, and at the time you were like, you made the very, very good point of his experience as Spider-Man, and I'm like, I was more optimistic because of how much I love Evil Dead and like stuff that he like his stuff in the horror aspect of it, and it really works for me in this one. Yeah, this is a really strong movie for me. I liked it a lot, and I just love Wanda's heel turn in this. it's wonderful. It's
I mean,
when
the
people
heel
are just
turn
like, it comes
happened
out
in
of nowhere.
WandaVision.
I'm like, what do you mean it comes out of nowhere?
Well, that's the thing, because
She's
the heel
already a
turn came
villain.
before. Yeah, she's a
Yeah, I'm
villain
like,
before the
she's
movie starts.
already a villain in WandaVision. She's just
Yeah.
not the villain that you think it is. But the fact that she took over a whole town and like made them play a sitcom game
And
or
was hurt
whatever,
like one,
it's
she was holding
terrifying.
people hostage, but she was hurting
Yes.
them. Like it wasn't
Yes.
like it wasn't like they
Psychologically
were having a good time.
torturing them. And like,
They talked about physically being in pain too.
oh, yeah, yeah. Because I just remember like those moments where like the guy that gets to like pull out of that scene is, could you call my
Yeah,
sister?
yeah.
Could you like all that kind of stuff? It's
It
just like, oh
sucked
my
for
god,
everyone.
this is horrifying. I'm like, people didn't want to accept her as a villain in that movie. I'm like, you weren't paying attention at all. She's already a villain.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it on that. So there's
Yeah,
people that like to be obtuse about Marvel, and that's that. Like
it's true.
nothing you can do about it.
And they like to be obtuse about the fact that, oh, just because I can identify with the reason why she turned heel, it makes her a good person. I'm like, listen, I can understand why John Wick killed a whole bunch of people because someone killed his dog. I could get down with that, but I'm not actually going to do it. I can understand that motivation, not actually going to do it. So understand that they're a villain a lot easier. Boom. There,
Ms. Marvel.
Yes.
This is episodes 194 to 196. Then we skip one episodes 198 to 199. Then we skip, and then episode 201.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know why we would skip between 96 and 98, but
it's because there was other stuff coming out during those periods of time
that came out that's not.
Oh yeah, those
Marvel.
movies that came out in that period of time, and other stuff that was interrupted.
Oh no, we did Obi-Wan. That's why.
Yes,
that's what that was. All right. Well, those are the episodes. You can listen to our coverage. I think that the last episode I said pretty much that like this probably needed to be a show and a movie. Like split up her past stuff. I don't know the proper way of doing it, but if I was gonna give that show a knock, it would be that. But otherwise, it introduced so many characters that I genuinely love spending time with, and I thought it was more interesting than it could have. Like the popular girl character, like we kept talking about how interesting it was that she wasn't necessarily a mean girl.
No,
she was just popular, and again, like just something interesting to throw in there that's not the ordinary. Obviously shifting to the character's background, the Pakistani lead right away, like a female, and just all of that is interesting, but I felt like again like who are you really, and like the fractured self, all of that came into play, and I liked all of that it was a story of her kind of healing and bringing this multi-generational trauma. She didn't solve it, but she brought her kind of solidifying who she was helped her mother and grandmother do the same and come together, and they were on their path to becoming better with each other. So I think all of that still works. I haven't revisited it, but I think all of that still works. Just it has the main thing of like, it might feel a bit weirdly paced because you do the Pakistan stuff and then you kind of come back and do the New Jersey stuff, and it feels like those could have been two separate stories. But also hearing that they were like, we just want to do everything because a second season is not guaranteed. I can't begrudge them for that. Like it makes for an imperfect product, but it still was enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun when you kind of meet the show at where the characters level is supposed to be. Like it's like a young teenage girl that's just like a fangirl and all this kind of stuff, and still doing like, arguably we're dealing with more of the high school stuff with Miss Marvel than we ever did with Peter Parker, and like same age around that standpoint of like schooling and superhero powers and all that kind of stuff. And obviously we're spending a lot more time because of the Disney Plus show and all that, but this there's a lot of good stuff here. I wish it just got more time to breathe.
Yeah, it could have been a longer show.
I think maybe a longer cut even on the episodes would make it work a little bit better, but like you're right in the sense I'm not saying it needed an extra episode. Just like give me like 2 to 3 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes more in each episode exploring some of the other stuff, and I think we've got a better show there. But it's a lot of good stuff that works still, and it's cute. And I really like what they did with the mom because I was not expecting that relation for me to care that much about that relationship at all.
Her family is great.
Yeah.
Thor: Love and Thunder. I still feel like it's like Black Widow unfairly shit on.
Sure.
Probably wouldn't change the ranking if I gave it what I remember, like 7.5, then I wouldn't change it. I feel like it's not as good as Thor Ragnarok, obviously.
Right.
But I still like it better than Thor and Thor the Dark World. I feel
Yes.
like you're still getting to explore this side of Thor, and as we said, the theme of like it's better to find love than it is to like, you know, try and be stoic about this and take it on the chin. And we see through the action of the movie that it's not that Thor needs to find a wife or a girlfriend. He just needs to actually open himself back up to someone and be willing to let them break his heart again. And in this case, he gains a daughter figure or a niece, however you want to put it. And I think that still means more to me than, I don't know, like why it was too funny in quotation marks. And but the big knock I would give it is I wasn't able to fully explain it when we did our episode, which is episode 200. I think that having all the Gore the God Butcher stuff happen off screen is a big mistake. I think that's a bit too much of telling and not showing. I think that's, for me, the biggest knock against the movie, like that you would have an actor like that and a character like this and have it constantly be like, oh, he just killed this person, oh, he just killed that person. And then when you see him, it's great, don't get me wrong, I loved Gore the God Butcher, but just the fact that they just kept telling you what he was doing instead of showing you is a bad idea. And hearing like who he had scenes with, like Jeff Goldblum, Lena Headey, like Peter Dinklage. So it's not like they didn't film it. It's that they did that thing of we need a 2-hour movie, so they cut a bunch of stuff, and I think they cut the wrong stuff.
Yeah. I
well, I don't think they should have cut anything, but sure. Like,
yeah. I think when you describe it like that, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't like the fact that you don't really see Gore as a threat up until they're showing you him fight, which is like pretty late in the thing, right? It could have been like, yeah, you could have shown us those dead gods, but it could have been like how they died, and it could have been just like the same thing, and it could have been a lot because they were playing with the light saturations and all that kind of stuff. It could have been a really cool effect of being like, oh, there's just a couple of moving things, and then they're like having this giant fight that no one can see. Like that would have been cool to see, and then you like a few seconds of that while like it's being reported that they all died and all that kind of stuff. Sure. That would have been great, a lot better. I agree. I don't think it's too funny like that. I don't like that criticism.
We talked about it. Like these, I think all the movies actually show Thor as using humor as a way of deflecting.
It's a defense mechanism for him.
It's a defense
entirely.
Mechanism. You can even see it in Avengers and Avengers 2. Like he does it. That's what he does. Like he uses his defense mechanism through humor and trying to make things be a good time instead of dealing with the issue. And again, this movie is forcing him to be like, no, like stop joking around, stop trying to like avoid the situation. Like you need this kind of human connection in your life.
Yeah. And it's a through line because I'm like, yeah, it's a big part of his character. And when you unravel that psyche of that character, you're like, I see what they're doing here. And this is why he, after especially if you put into context, after the whole Endgame arc where he goes through PTSD and is not able to do anything for 5 years, gains a whole lot of weight and all that kind of stuff, and he like trains back and all that kind of stuff. Like he's still psychologically affected by that in this movie, right? So the idea that he's even more, I'm going to make more fun of everything and have more defense mechanisms because of what I just went through and all the trauma there that I probably didn't properly heal, that he just kept deflecting from. He just killed Thanos.
Yeah.
By the way, that's it. Like he did the battles and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that in this movie he would have it's too funny is actually more on brand of the fact that yeah, his defense mechanisms are at an all-time high. He's gotten, back in shape or whatever. But it's it's all defense mechanism on top of defense mechanism on top of defense mechanism. You're right. When you look at this movie, it's got a good message.
Yeah.
Whether or not it was properly done, yeah, we could have used more gore.
Again, every time I hear, oh, they tried to make it be 2 hours or less, I'm like, well, this movie is probably not going to be as good as it could have been.
Yep.
I shouldn't say probably. It's not going to be as good as it could have been.
It's true.
When you do that. So yeah, those were why I was saying I disagree on the whole. We never thought that there was anything
Yeah, that's
wrong
fair.
with the length of this and Eternals, I think both suffer from
either too long or not
no,
enough.
It's not even I feel like Eternals too long. It's too long considering what actually gets explored. Like you don't really get much out of the length. So and for this, they cut things that are important character building things, like basically anything that Gore does.
Yep.
Yeah. That's Thor 4. I Am Groot. We do not have an episode for this. I do not care about this show.
Yep.
But it is part of.
I'm glad it's there.
It was released in Phase 4, so it is on the list.
It counts.
Should not be a surprise where that lands on my list, but I just do not. I don't remember it. I didn't rewatch it. I watched it in one sitting, I'm pretty sure.
I thought there was one where he gets a bubble bath or something like that. That's how much I care. Or no, when you said I don't think about this, I think about I Am Groot less than What If. I think about What If way more than I think of I Am Groot.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that it was a thing until we did this list. There's nothing else to say. Sorry, we don't have anything else to say.
We're not shitting all over it, but there's just no implication. There's nothing. It's just no story except for here's a fun thing that happened, which is great. But we're not spending an hour reviewing 20 minutes worth of content.
But we did spend a long time reviewing She-Hulk, which is episode 206 to 214.
And what a segue.
Yeah. This is obviously pretty recent. I have not changed my opinion of the show. I think I've even dug my heels in deeper on what works about it works. I've seen some takes like, how dare she tell the Hulk he doesn't know what he's talking about? I'm like, in that specific situation she was describing, yes, he doesn't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't understand how anyone could have any confusion about that.
Yep.
That's just a fact. He doesn't know what it's like to actually live your life as a woman.
Yep. And to think that he does is just missing the point.
Like, well, he went through a lot. I'm like, yeah, she's not saying he didn't go through a lot.
He went through a lot as a man
because he went through that stuff and isn't trying, and he isn't adjusting for how that might be different for her, considering she deals with a lot of modulating her feelings
daily
before any gamma introduction into her life. But yeah, anyway, as I said, I've kind of dug my heels in more. As I said it in our last episode, I still don't really get what they were doing with the Hulk King after the whole Kevin thing.
Yeah.
I understood it leading up to it, but then I was like, oh, so then what are we doing here? So I feel like that needs to be explored more. And I am willing to just leave the Blonsky stuff because clearly they have plans for him for later. So that
but the Titania stuff is a problem still for me.
Oh, I don't care about that because I was like, she's just in it. I like her scenes. I get that people are like, why did she bust through the wall? I'm like, I don't care. It's not. I'm not saying that that's not a problem for people. It's just like the show was very clearly about a very specific thing.
Yeah,
all of the like superhero stuff was to facilitate the exploration of what it's like to be a woman in the public eye. So that landed for me.
Yeah.
And to me, Titania busting through the courtroom wasn't like something they built up to and then kind of skirted away from. Like it feels like, okay, yeah, they cut something that explains why she did that. But it didn't feel like, wait, why? Like I can't move forward unless I know why she bust through that wall. Like it's just like, She busts through the wall. That's
Mhm.
that. There's other things like, well, what were you doing with the king, the Hulk King then that makes me feel like I can't really move forward from that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yes, they're like as we said, there's knocks against all these Disney Plus shows.
Mhm.
I don't think they've kind of, what's the word, perfected the amount of time that needs to go into these shows just yet.
Not yet, no. It
'Cause,
seems like as long as there's certain check boxes,
yeah, because a lot of the
then
issues stem from like, oh, well, they just didn't explore this, or it had to get cut because of
yeah,
this. And I'm not talking about the COVID stuff. Like when people get into, oh, it doesn't look that good. I'm like, okay, sure, we know why. Like
yeah,
there's
get
no
past
more
it, people.
insight.
Like,
There's no more insight past. There's a very clear reason.
yeah,
There's a couple of reasons why, and they're very public. So that's that.
hmm
It's not
hmm
like people were like, nah, whatever.
not at all.
Next is Werewolf by Night.
We didn't get
We
to
didn't
review
do this.
this
It's
on
not
an
for me, but I
episode.
think it's well made. Is
I
all I have to say.
Yeah, I enjoyed it for what
Yeah,
it was. It was a lot of fun. It's not something typically I would enjoy. Like the whole like going old school, like, oh, I love black and white films. I'm like, I don't really care for them that much. So seeing this done in a format where I'm like, oh, I care a little bit more about this. This is fun.
I will say I
Then
thought the
yeah.
performances were great,
Yeah.
especially the woman who's like, is she like the widow, like the stepmom of
Oh
something
yeah.
blood?
Yeah,
She's
yeah, yeah.
amazing. That's what I mean, not the
Not
like
the
hunter. She's
not the
good. That's a good
Elsa.
character. Elsa is good, but
Mhm.
I am more talking about really enjoying the performance of that woman who I think is the guy's widow.
Yes, that is
Not yeah,
definitely the case because
she's amazing.
she I remember this one line that during the whole like, and for tonight we're gonna remember this guy, and for many of you, but I knew him as such a fond lover, and it made it
Yeah,
so funny to me. I'm like, yes, I am in. This is
yeah.
just I am in for this kind of thing. It's funny now. It's great. It
It's
worked.
that as I said, I think it's really well made. I'm
Mhm.
happy that it's out there for people because it's something different for sure.
Mhm.
Um, just not really
Do you think it'll
my
link at any
my thing.
point?
Hmm?
Because that's something that, do you think it'll link to MCU proper?
Yeah, I don't care about that kind of stuff. So you should. I mean, I know you always ask it, but it's not. That's not ever. I just care about like I'm spending the time watching this. Did this make sense? Like,
Mhm.
did this make it worthwhile for me? And how it connects to the MCU doesn't really factor into me. If it does make connections, that's always fun. But if they don't want to do that, then that's whatever. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't make or break for me.
Yeah.
I
I do
think,
like asking that question because we're at the point in the MCU where it's like, yeah, we could have random characters just pop up and show up in movies and like all this kind of stuff. And
yeah.
it's a fun thing. So thinking about it is
Well,
a
I mean,
fun.
it starts off showing you like it's this tier of the Avengers, and now we're going to show
Yes.
you what happens in the subterranean, like not literal, but just
Yeah.
what happens like when they're off doing their thing. So
Mhm.
I think that what they're saying is there's a possibility that a Doctor Strange has to come down and deal with these guys. I'm not meaning fighting them, but
Mhm.
like work with them or whatever. It's just yeah, they've just opened up a new area, a new
Yeah.
door for the
Who knows?
MCU.
I mean, they were talking about Blade. Who knows what that might open up into at some point,
Well, if it ever
or what
gets
it
made,
planned
yeah.
to open up into. But there was a lot of rumors of like other stuff, like Ghost Rider eventually coming or something like that.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it was fun for what it was.
Yes. All
Definitely
right.
fun
So
for what it
then
was.
that leaves us with Black Panther 2, which is episode 218 of our show.
Mhm.
We recorded it last week. It's out. You can hear uh again, I haven't been able to see it again. I think it's a great movie. My one thing was, not every character felt tied into it as um intricately as the first movie.
Mhm.
And that's just me looking for reasons to not looking for reasons. It was something that stuck out for me, but I think I've softened on the Riri Williams thing. Not what I didn't like, which was they
Mm.
took her suit, but just you know, I think I already said on the episode like I wouldn't take her out of it, but I think it's just that aspect that bothered me. It didn't feel like the actual conclusion to what they went through.
Yeah, because I mean, you obviously had that criticism knowing that Ironheart is a direct follow up to Wakanda Forever, right?
Yeah.
So you knowing that is definitely watching at the time. I would have been like, yeah, this is dumb. Why would they do that? But for me, I was like, I thought there would be more time between Ironheart and this, where it'd be like, okay, she's like 25 now, like 5 years later. And she's like, oh man, this one time in Wakanda, I did some crazy thing. And then someone's like, oh, you might have to do it again. And boom, 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 Ironheart. I don't know. That was just stupid. But the idea of like, you're right. Yeah, they're taking it away and she's going to build it all over again. And you've seen the suit, it looks like crap. So either it's like it's the story of like, oh, this is me making that version of the suit, the first version of the suit you see in the movie. And then all of a sudden we have to do a montage of her making this ultra crazy suit with no resources that we assume. Or maybe she gets back in touch with Wakanda and it's like, hey, you know that suit you took away? Here's the reason why I need you to give it back.
All right. We are going to now rank these. Starting at number 17, least favorite. I'll go first. I Am Groot.
That's your least favorite?
Yeah.
Okay. Hawkeye for me.
Excellent.
I enjoyed I Am Groot. I did not enjoy Hawkeye. The fact that we had to do an episode per to review probably made me hate it more.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
be number 16 for me, Hawkeye.
I Am Groot.
Excellent. Nice switcheroo we did there. Number 15 for me, Eternals.
Yeah, same seas.
We did it.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna be different here. Number 14 for me is What If.
Ooh, I had Loki on here.
Excellent.
Controversial rating there. That one.
Number 13 for me. I'm actually changing this in the moment. Werewolf by Night.
Mine is Black Widow.
Excellent.
Great. It fell far from grace from that 9. It fell really far.
Number 12. For me is Werewolf. No, Moon Knight. I just said Werewolf. Number 12 for me is Moon Knight.
That's my What If 12.
Number 12 for you is What If.
Yeah.
Number 11 for me is Thor: Love and Thunder.
Ms. Marvel.
Excellent. Number 10 for me is Loki.
And mine is Thor.
Excellent. Number 9 for me is She-Hulk.
Samesies.
We did it.
Love it. We did it.
Obviously, this won't be the same because my number 8 is Black Widow.
Mine is Werewolf by Night.
You did say you enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it that much more than obviously everything else below it.
Number 7 for me is Ms. Marvel.
Moon Knight for me.
Excellent. Number 6 for me is Shang-Chi.
Mine is Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Excellent. We're doing it. We're in the top 5 now. Number 5 for me is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, I got Shang-Chi at 5.
Nice. I was not expecting you to rate it higher than me.
I was not expecting it to be that high either, but I
think it's just a good movie. I mean,
I think it's a very solidly done movie, despite my gripes with it.
Yeah.
And I'm actually looking forward to seeing Shang-Chi in the MCU more than any other character right now.
Yeah,
because
I would love to see how they incorporate him.
Yeah, because everyone else is kind of like really established, and you kind of get what they would do in Shang-Chi's situation. Like, what would he actually do?
We'll find out.
This is kind of fun to learn about, so I'm excited.
Number 4 for me is WandaVision.
And I got Spider-Man at 4.
Excellent. Number 3 for me is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Ooh, didn't see that coming. WandaVision for me.
That makes sense. Number 2 for me is Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Yep. I got Doctor Strange.
I kind of figured it would be up there.
Yeah.
And then number 1 for me is Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Really? I got Black Panther up here. Perfect. It was just such a good movie.
I think for me, the difference is Falcon and Winter Soldier felt way more steeped in racial relations than Black Panther 2, which doesn't make I just thought like, wow, they really went there with it. And I
Mhm.
think that all the things we talked about while we covered it, like what made Sam different, I think they just used this format of Disney Plus show the best on that,
Mhm.
and also explored things that I genuinely care about and thought there was really great subtle stuff that was going on that obviously people missed.
Yeah. So many people miss so many
Yeah.
important things that we were just like, yeah, this was great. And everyone was like, oh, did you see the suit? And we're like, shut up. Who
Yeah.
cares about that? Like,
Well,
shut up.
that's
Yeah.
that then. We've ranked all of MCU Phase 4. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. We're part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Game Movies, Black Hole Films. So please rate. No, don't rate them. You can listen to them, but don't rate them yet. Just go to thatshelf.com. You'll find those shows, our shows, and more shows. If you want to hear older episodes of our show, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @tdsspoiled. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, a whole bunch of places. So please, now you can rate, review, and subscribe to our show. Follow our show, Spoiled Rotten Podcast, on all of the different podcast platforms. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.